Good afternoon, folks. This is Kimberly Jessica reporting in live today. It is Thanksgiving weekend, the day after Black Friday and the Saturday before Cyber Monday. And I'm pretty excited today because, I just smell happiness in the air and change in the air. Even though, we've been losing some huge people this year. We just lost the Brady Bunch mom a couple of days ago, and, we've lost, a couple of world leaders, and just a lot's going on. But I'm pretty excited today because I'm having the opportunity to interview a very modest gentleman that, he's focusing on some things that are pretty interesting when it comes to writer's block and the psychology of script writers and writers in Hollywood. But this man is what I call a legend, and let me tell you why before I give you who he is. This man has written shows that you and I have literally sat back and made a part of our lives every week or at any point in our life as an adult, or if we have children, his shows that he's written and he's also produced has been a part of our children's lives. And let me tell you why. If you've ever heard of shows like, say, Girlfriends, Duckman, Dilbert, the wild-thornberrys, the wild-thornberrys, that's huge in and of itself. If you've ever heard of stuff like, Tom, The Good Life, Cafe American, Beetlejuice, anybody? Hello? That's huge. Newhart, we're going back here to the 80s, 9 to 5. The new adventures of Winnie the Pooh, who doesn't like Winnie the Pooh? And hello, I used to literally sit back and watch Alice one day at a time. The Jeffersons, now we're going back to the 70s. Yeah, we're talking about him, that guy. None other than David-Silverman, who's on the line with us today. David, are you there?
Yes, I am. Wow, that was a big
Yay!
Okay. Great to be here.
All right, yeah, this is great, David. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview with us today. This is such a wonderful opportunity to be talking to you.
Yeah, well, great. Yeah, I'm excited about it too.
Yeah, so David, you have this amazing Hollywood life where you've written all these amazing shows and produced a lot of them, but you've also picked up a new career. Well, it's not that new, but you picked up a career what people that don't even think they realize that you are also a licensed marriage and family therapist, and you have your master's degree. And you help screenwriters, help them with their writing, help them with their writer's block, help them getting into the flow, help them staying motivated, help them with rituals to keep on track. I mean, you're helping them with their creativity, learning the archetypes of films that sell. Yeah, seriously, I'm just speechless here. David, I've got to ask you. Tell us, people love to talking to people like you. People love to know the story. Tell us the story and behind the man. What's the myth behind the man, the truth and the untruth? Tell us everything.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I kind of started out looking to get into psychology, but I was kind of a funny guy in high school. I did I was the cartoonist for the school newspaper, and I was writing funny scripts and things all through college, and so when it came to, I graduated from Stanford with a degree in psychology, and I decided I kind of took a year off, and I decided to try screenwriting. I applied to USC Cinema Department, and I was kind of surprised that I got in there. And I met my writing partner, Steve Starsick, there, and it wasn't long before we were pitching Mork and Mindy. We sold a story there, and we got those producers called the Jeffersons, got us in there, and we wrote a few episodes, and then once we were in the Norman Lear group there, we walked across to the other office. I dropped the script off, and I got a call from the story editor of One Day at a Time. They brought us in, and we got hired as story editors on that show. So it happened pretty fast, actually, maybe, within the span of 1 year. So we were very lucky, but I guess we were very good.
No, I mean, you had to have been really good because, Nano, I mean, Mork and Mindy, I mean, seriously, I used to love these shows, like the Jeffersons, George Jefferson. I loved Archie Bunker. I loved One Day at a Time. Of course, you didn't write Archie Bunker, but still, it's along those, you have the Jeffersons, Maude, Archie Bunker. Those were kind of like, along the same lines. They were like kind of in the same genre, of the Jack Comack days. I hope I'm saying his name right, but you know who I'm talking about. He also did Wonder Woman. He did Chico and the Man. He did Welcome Back, Kotter. You know what I mean? So you're going. I love Jack. I think his name was Jack Comack. Am I saying his name right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Comack. Yeah, Jack Comack. Yeah. I mean. Right. Yeah, Welcome Back, Kotter. He wrote, he also wrote Chico and the Man. He also, he had some work, he did some work with Wonder Woman from the 70s, and then you had Maude, and Maude had crossovers with Archie Bunker, and then Tom, the Jeffersons. And then, of course, you had One Day at a Time, and if I'm not mistaken, One Day at a Time kind of almost felt like the Facts of Life and different strokes a little bit, too. Because some of these shows have the same kind of feel, and I just find it amazing that, you've done so much, and even with Alice and Mel and Flo, and, it's like, I could go back here, and what's happening? I mean, you brought that back to life from the 70s, and I totally remember, David, being a little girl. I wasn't that little. I was a young teenager back when What's Happening Now came back to television. I was really excited because, of course, Roger, who I just interviewed actually 2 years ago, he's in his 70s now, but he was an adult at that point, and What's Happening Now, and I remember just me and my mom and my family sitting on the living room couch back in '85 being so excited that What's Happening Now was back on television, and Shirley and Dwayne Wayne, and you did some amazing work there, What was it like, what was your inspiration to come up with these phenomenal ideas, David?
Yeah, we, let's see, well, we drew inspiration from just life, the Norman Lear shows were about real life. One Day at a Time was the first show about a single mom, actually. And Mackenzie Phillips and Valerie Bertinelli were the two daughters she was bringing up. And it's hard to believe there was never a show about a single mom before that, but, leave it.
Well, was it the Partridge Family? The Partridge Family, right?
Yeah, I think that came after. Yeah, I think it did.
No, the Partridge Family was like from the 60s, actually. That was like kind of like single momish a little bit.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Well, it was the first sitcom anyway that
yeah.
Delved into that. So,
what was it like working with Valerie and Pat and Mom and Mackenzie, and what was it like working, thinking inside of these characters' brains to bring them to life?
Yeah, it was a very interesting time to be on that show because Mackenzie Phillips had been let go because she had a lot of drug problems.
Drug issues, yes.
And Valerie Bertinelli was dating Eddie Van Halen at the time, and he was always...
Yes, I remember that. That was such a big deal. Like, yeah, the Van Halens came forward about those two dating together. It was amazing. And Van Halen was pretty big. I think they just came out with Jump back then.
Yeah, and Eddie Van Halen was always on the set, just hanging around with Valerie and drinking a Heineken. It's like... Aww. Very cool to be around that. And then Mackenzie Phillips came back and did kind of a reunion show. So it's fun to be around that atmosphere. There's a lot of inside Hollywood gossip going on. It was like a very interesting, that was our first staff job as writers.
Wow. Did you ever meet David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar on the set too? I know Sammy came after him and took over the vocals, but, did you ever get a chance to meet David Lee Roth as well as, as well as any of them?
No, I didn't, but it was pretty, Eddie Van Halen was very kind of quiet, introverted guy. He was often in the corner, and he was just always watching Valerie. It was kind of, he wasn't like a big old rock and roll star like you'd picture them,
Right. Right. And Valerie was like totally the hottest thing out at that time too. But she's super pretty, like super pretty. Like she was like every girl wanted to look like Valerie Bertinelli with the little feathered hair in the front, little feathered bangs, and I wanted to look like her. You know, we were not even the same race.
Yeah, she was so cute. Yeah.
Wow. So, you know, and so then you went on, you did One Day at a Time, and what was it like working on Alice? I mean, that was kind of single momish too. Alice was a single mom working in a diner.
Yeah, absolutely it was. It was fun. The guy who played Mel, Vic Tabak, was a really great guy.
Oh, I love Vic.
Yeah, he's a good actor. He was in the original movie. You know, people forget that Martin Scorsese directed Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which is where that spinoff came from, the Alice TV show. And it was run by Bob Carroll and Madeline Pugh, Madeline Davis Jr., who were the two people who did all the I Love Lucy's. So it's kind of interesting working with some legends, you know, the people we were pitching story ideas to, and working out the comedy, block comedy scenes and jokes and stuff. It was kind of like, hey, we're working around these guys who pretty much started and invented the sitcom.
Yeah, you're talking legends here. Like you said, it's so sad when you even sit back. You know, Vic is gone now. He's been gone since a while, since 1990. But, you know, I love Mel. He kind of almost had a feel of Telly Savalas a little bit, Kojak a little bit, you know? To me, they kind of had that same feel going on, you know? So, yeah.
Of all the actors I worked with, he was like, I think the most friendliest. The guy who, you know, he owned a racehorse at the time, and he'd invite us to the track and buy us drinks, and he'd even put bets, you know, on his horses or just
wow.
His money. He was like the most generous actor, I think, you know, in 25 years that I've ever worked with.
Wow. Rest his soul in peace. His son Christopher's still around, I think, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, I'm not sure what he's up to, but yeah, so.
Yeah, and then you went on and you worked with What's Happening Now. Tell me, you know, David, what was it like bringing together, you know, this cast from the 70s that were around with That's My Mama, What's Happening, you know, Good Times. What was it like, you know, now was this the one, did Maybellina, did the mother come back? I don't think she had died yet. I don't think she died yet.
Now you're testing my memory. No, I think, you know, most of the stories involved Raj and his wife.
And his sister. And his wife, yes.
And Rerun, I think, was in some, you know, most of the episodes. And
and Dwayne was in this, and Shirley had came back.
Right, yeah, Shirley Humple, yeah.
Shirley had came back.
Yeah, it was a great, that was a great experience, too. I mean, those guys were very funny. And we were working with two of the guys who produced the Jeffersons, went on to bring that show back. They were always fun to work with.
Wow. It was amazing. I remember when Roger came back with his wife, and that was the start of like her career from being Roger's wife. I forgot her name, but you know. Yeah, I totally remember. Dee had grown up, and she was sneaking into the living room that night. I just totally remember it. I was so excited to, you know, basically see Dee again, you know, with her just always harassing her brother and telling on him and getting him spanked. So it was just, you know, you're talking memories here from the 70s and bringing back these shows. It was just amazing. And then, of course, you did Newhart, and you did Alf. How was it working on Alf? Because Alf made me. I got in trouble in school for telling a girl that she looked like Alf. I got in a lot of trouble. We were arguing, and I told her that she looked like a little furry thing. And I didn't just say Alf. I said, you look like that little furry thing named Alf. And I got in trouble. I got put out the classroom. And she was so angry. She was so mad at me for telling her that. What was it like working? I'm going to ask you about Alf since I got in trouble for saying that someone looked like him.
Right, yeah. No, Alf was a lot of fun. Alf was a very funny show. We didn't shoot it in front of a live audience because Alf was, you know, a $50,000 puppet. And the guy who did the voice operated, the puppet. It was a pretty sophisticated thing. The ears and the eyes moved, and it was all done kind of, through electronic stuff. There was some, Wi-Fi stuff going on there. And we had trenches built in the set.
Wow.
And on the Sony lot. And it was, so basically the living room floor was about at chest level. And we had these trenches, so the guy who ran the puppet and did the voice could walk around and make it look like Alf was just sitting on the couch or whatever, It was pretty amazing. But,
the magic that they come up with for these shows. I mean, this is seriously magic. I mean, to the point where the audiences are bought in it, body, mind, and soul. Like they identify with these characters, even if it's a freaking puppet.
Yeah, he was a huge. I mean, during that time, of all the shows I think I've written for, I think most people tell me that Alf was their favorite show. It was a good show for kids too, and it was very funny and appealed to adults. So it was a fun show to work on.
It was funny, and like I said, I got in trouble. I got put out the classroom for telling a girl that she looked like Alf. So I'll never forget that. She was so mad at me. So here I am talking to the guy that wrote the show that got me kicked out of class.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it was an interesting show to work on. There was one of the actors there. I'm not going to name names, but he was so into his part, and I don't know, actors can be very into their characters, and so there was a line, I forget the exact line, but he said I would never tell Alf this, and he got very upset, and he actually stormed off and locked himself in his dressing room for the rest of the day.
Oh my gosh, he was, okay, he might have been a little over the top. I mean, I would never say this to Alf. I mean, Alf is a puppet, dude, seriously. It's like saying I won't say this to Miss Piggy or Kermit.
I know, yeah. Actors can be a little, high-strung, I guess that's a good word to use.
Well, you gotta have something going on so you can do that kind of job,
Yeah, he punched his fist through the wall that day, too. He was so upset about it. I think he was just upset about storming off and costing us a day of filming. And then the next day he bought the writing staff like a crate of Dom Perignon as kind of a makeup gift.
He came clean about it. So, yeah, he really took his job way too seriously at that point. So, yeah, that was a bit much. Yeah, that was a bit much. That's a bit much.
I wouldn't say.
Then you. No, go ahead. No. I mean, I was going to say, then you have the ones that, don't take their jobs that seriously. And so he was really passionate. He was passionate about this character.
Absolutely. And a very talented actor. Yeah, very talented.
Wow. And of course, you can't tell us who it was, right?
Yeah, I better not say.
You're so funny. You're funny, too. You're mischievous. That's what you get for being such a good writer. You got actors going crazy because you're such a good... It's all your fault. Shame on you for being a good writer. How dare you?
Yeah, guilty as charged.
Yeah, it's all your fault. We'll just blame you.
Yeah, I take full responsibility.
You said I'll take full responsibility. Right. I love it. Okay. So then you went on and you did, you did a couple of episodes of The Good Life, but then you went on and you did Real Monsters, you did Duckman, you did Life with Louie. Hello, that's another big one. Seriously, you did like Undressed, you did Gilbert, Girlfriends. Seriously, and then we get into the wild-thornberrys. Tell us about the wild-thornberrys, David. Spill the beans. Tell us. I've got my key right here.
Well, the inside story. Okay, so we had a development deal, my partner and I, at Fox, which is...
Lucky you. Like dreams come true. Hello.
Yeah, it's the best job in the world. You get paid to sit around and come up with ideas for TV shows. So we had the people who did the animation for that, and they did the first year of The Simpsons as well, was Klasky Chupo animation. I don't know, you're an animator, you might know something about that as a director.
Mm-hmm.
They did Rugrats as well. So Rugrats was around. They were looking for another show, and
yeah, my nephews were really upset when the Rugrats all growed up. They were really pissed off because the Rugrats grew up.
I know.
But continue.
They did a couple movies with, they did Rugrats Go Wild, which was a combination of the wild-thornberrys characters and the Rugrats. So there were, feature films based on, there were like, there was the Wild-Thornberrys movie, and then Rugrats Go Wild, which had them in it as well. And then there was a Donnie TV movie that appeared on I think it was Cartoon Network or something. But and the guy who did the voice of Donnie, well, Donnie was he was raised by wolves basically, and he didn't speak English. He just made kind of noises, and his voice was done by Flea from the Chili Peppers.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting. It started out as an adult show, and the dad, who was played by Tim Curry, was the guy who could talk to animals when we first developed it. So we did, and it was slated. They wanted to develop something to go on after The Simpsons. So we did a bunch of different versions. We did a version of him as an Englishman, which finally stuck. After a while, they said, "Oh, people can't relate to English people," so they asked us to change it to an American, and we did that. And we went back. Eventually, I think they preferred the English character. Nigel Thornberry was a world adventurer, and he took the family everywhere he went. And so they changed their mind again and decided to make it a kids show. And they changed it so that Liza was the daughter was the one that could speak to animals. So anyway, it was a great idea. It got kids interested in a lot of environmental issues and keeping the endangered species around and all these great things. And it was fun to write because you get to talk to animals.
Wow.
So anyway, it was a great experience, and Husky and Chupa were really great to us. Really, the people who did the animation, very, very great people to work with. Arlene Klosky and Gabor Chupa, they were Hungarian. Very talented people.
You were the creator, literally. You were the creator of the show. That's
yeah,
huge.
So co-creator.
88 episodes. That's a lot of episodes. 88 episodes.
Yeah.
From 98 to 2004.
I didn't write them all. I just created the show.
Yeah, you created the show. Seriously. And then there was the Wild Thornberrys, the movie. And the origin of Donnie. You took this places, man. Seriously.
Yeah. It was what can I say? Great experience.
I want to be like you when I grow up.
Yeah, I can't believe it. When I look back, I can't believe that I did all this stuff.
The thing about it is, I love the fact that, you and I, our careers kind of parallel. It's kind of wild because, coming to this country as a little girl, Spanish was my first language. I came here from Panama, and I had major learning disabilities. And I just remember that when I excelled in school, I excelled in school whenever I was reading, picture books, anything with pictures, anything that I had to put my hands on, I excelled in school. Anything that was math or anything like that, needless to say, there was developmental delay and developmental ophthalmology and ADHD and partial, dyslexia, and there was all this stuff going on. And so when I got my master's degree, mine was to help kids. I ran a special ed department. And so I created my animations and picture books that was how my kids excelled in school and did well. They learned by my picture books like I did. So, of course, when I retired myself from being a teacher, I went on and I started writing all these children's books, and then I turned them all into scripts and treatments and all that stuff, yada, yada, yada. So here you are where you did all this first, and now you're the guy that helps writers and people that want to go into the field of work that you have done bring their magic to life. What was the tipping point that made you say, you know what, I'm done with this for a while. Let me go back to school and get an entire master's degree in marriage and family therapy, which, by the way, folks, is not an easy degree to get. Let me let you know that. Let me get a systems model, not just a medical model, like mine is the medical model. Let me get a systems family therapy, master's in family therapy model degree, and come back to Hollywood as a psychotherapist. What was the tipping point, David? Spill the tea.
Well, I got to tell you, the story goes back to my childhood. My brother had OCD as a kid, when he's in his teens, and the kind where the germ-phobic type, always washing his hands, over and over, and a lot of other kind of ritualistic things. So I was in family therapy with a psychiatrist for, it seemed like, 6 or 7 years. Every week we'd go into family therapy, and I was just a kid, and my younger brother was going through this, so I really saw him miraculously turn around. And now he's been working at the same job for like 30 years, and he has a house.
Wow.
He's married. So I saw that happen, firsthand, and that affected me quite a bit as I decided to major in psychology at Stanford. And, it was always a big interest of mine. I was always fascinated by the study of human behavior, and they have great professors at Stanford. Philip Zimbardo, the guy who came up with the Stanford prison experiment, was the guy who taught my Psych 101 class. So they were like famous, renowned, like researchers. And, so that was exciting. I got pretty psyched up about, that. And, so I graduated with honors from Stanford in that subject matter. So, so it was always there in the back of my head. Here I am, writing and really loving that job. It's so much fun, I got to tell you. I mean, it's hard work. And it's very competitive, and you gotta, there's rejection, procrastination, there's a lot of anxiety, there's deadlines, all kinds of stuff. So I decided, when I went back and got my license to work, to focus on writers. And, writers spend a lot of time alone with their own thoughts. They're isolated. They tend to be introverted a lot, quite a bit. And they tend to be really highly sensitive people with a lot of empathy. So they tend to get, there's like a high incidence of different problems, psychological problems that writers have gone through. So I focused on that, and now I work with screenwriters and TV writers. I work with a team of writers who there was they were boyfriend and girlfriend before they got onto the show. I won't name the show, but it's a very big hour show on TV. So they were boyfriend and girlfriend before they got on the show. Then they broke up, but they continued writing as a team. So when they got hired on their first show, there was a lot of problems because she had a boyfriend and he had a girlfriend. And there was a lot of jealousy. And it was kind of like a family therapy, trying to work with other people to get them on board on the same page. And I have other writers who are one guy who's married to a writer who's a co-exec on a big show, another hour show, and he's struggling. He had a staff job, but then 10 years went by and he's trying to get back into it. And it's so frustrating, for writers trying to get back into writing now on television. So helping them through it. We're working on, there's some issues about perfectionism. There's a kind of perfectionism where, you're so focused on getting it right that you don't quite see the big picture. And so a lot of every scene could be perfect, but the story might not be. And so there's...
Damn those perfectionists, I tell you. They look at people like me and they critique my spelling errors, and I'm like, if you don't leave my spelling errors alone and look at the creative stuff that I created here, so I'm with the dyslexia thing going, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Because I'm like the big picture girl, you know what I mean? I'm like, we have a wonderland here, but you want to go and take the magical forest apart over there because the tree's not supposed to be there, and you want to go over here and get rid of the enchanted forest, and you want to get rid of the dark forest, and I hope that makes sense, but yeah, that's kind of what goes on in my head.
Right. Yeah. That's it's hard not to be a perfectionist in television because you're, everybody's looking at your grammar, like you said. They're making sure your sentences sound right. Plus, they have to be conversational. And when you're on a staff and you're writing, everybody you're in a room full of writers, and everybody gets your pages and they rewrite you. So that takes that's kind of a psychological challenge right there. So, you have to get along.
Yeah, I mean, especially a lot of people don't take rejection well,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, one thing I do, I like to tell people who are starting out as writers is one thing happens when you really commit and you decide you're going to do this is your life, and one way or another you're going to be writing for the rest of your life. And just fully commit to it in that way. And think about it in the long term. A lot of writers have this problem where they write the first screenplay and they feel like they have to sell this. And they feel like they have to get it made. Now, the odds of that happening are very, very slim. It's happened a few times. I think Diablo Cody got Juno made that way. But it's, she had a past she wrote a lot of other things, novels and things before that. So there's no really overnight successes in this business. So if you commit to the long term, then I tell people you want to think of this as you're going to be writing maybe 100 scripts in your career, and so this first one, if it doesn't sell, that's okay. You're learning, and what may happen is these early scripts could get you a meeting with an agent or get you in to pitch a movie to a producer. So people look at it as I encourage them to look at it as a writing sample instead of, hey, I have to get this film produced. I got to raise the money and make this for this first script, into a film. So I encourage people to think of it as a process. Think of this career as a process, and when that happens, when you're thinking it'll take the long, look at the long, your entire career, you tend not to focus on the individual rejections as much. You're looking forward to the next project. And I also encourage people to do multiple projects. So if you put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, and that's like psychologically,
bottom falls out, you've got a leakage. If that bottom falls out, that's it.
Yeah, it's devastating. Yeah, so I try to work with writers on that kind of attitude, just way of refocusing, or just looking at things a little bit differently, thinking about things differently. And then another thing falls into place once you make that lifetime commitment to writing is when you have free time, you know what to do. It's very clear. You got to write.
Mm-hmm.
So it clears up a lot of things for you, and it helps with time management. Helps you realize what you have to do. If you consider it like a hobby or just kind of you're dabbling in it, it's easy to fall, lose motivation and to let things go. And And writing is like, it's a lot about routine. It's about, trying to get in, sit in front of the keyboard every day, get the work done. 3 pages a day, 1,000 words a day, whatever, all writers have like different, routines, and they're very routine oriented, kind of ritualistic. Either they get up really early in the morning, like at 5 a.m. and write from 6 to like 2, or they write all night, which is more my style.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I'm sucked in right now, and I'm on an interview with you. You know what I mean? I'm listening to what you're saying. I feel like I'm in school again. I'm like, okay, I'm taking notes here. I'm thinking about this. I'm feeling what he's saying, and my mind is racing as I'm listening to him. I'm thinking about my life as a writer. I mean, yeah. So you definitely got something going on here because I used to be a teacher. I did it for over a decade, and I love when I'm talking to another teacher. I know when I'm talking to another teacher, and I stop what I'm doing and I listen. I made a decision in life to remain a student for life. Miss Know-It-All died a long time ago. She was alive and strong, and Miss Know-It-All knew everything, and she died, and the Student for Life came forward, and yeah, I love what you have to say. This is amazing. So, how can one work with you? Now, do you still do show running at all, David?
I'm just, dabbling a little bit in that now. I wrote a half-hour pilot for a kids show recently, but I'm not full-time. That's a full-time commitment. That's 7 days a week, 24/7. So I'm focused on therapy right now. I do write a blog called Hollywood Therapy on a big website called Psych Central, and I write about how, the challenges that writers face, and like I said, I cover all these topics: rejection, procrastination, deadlines, horrible bosses, difficult actors, all of those subjects.
Stuff people don't think about.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I try to. It's all practical advice, but some of it's a little bit psychological. Some of it's more career oriented, like what kind of day jobs are good for writers. I had a job working as a script reader for a studio, and that really, every day I read a different script, and I had to write coverage on it and kind of either recommend it or pass on it. And you really learn a lot about writing doing that. You learn like which scripts rise to the top and which scripts are just kind of flat. And that's a job I recommend for all young writers. If you can get that job, I got paid $50 a day to do that. At the time, it kept me going.
Yeah, and it's like some people look at it and say $15 a day. God, I don't even get out of bed for that. That's the great work, but that's the magic. That's the magic. That's the magic where you're literally learning as you're reading because you're like, wow, that script can take your mind over and emotions. You're like, okay, this is something good. I like it. Then you have the ones that just don't do it for you. It jumps around. It's like, okay, what the hell am I reading? What let me go back and read this other page because I got really lost. So, you know what I mean? It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I had to tend bar at the same time as I was doing that job. So every day I drive into Hollywood, pick up a script, come back. I take it to the bar with me while I was, behind the bar, try to read it, and then I go home like at 2 a.m. and write up the covers. But it was an invaluable experience.
It is. So how can we work with you? If we want to, hire you, what's the process?
Yeah, well, you can either go on my website. I have two, actually. david-silverman, lmft.com is for psychotherapy. And it's, just to help writers with motivation and to get through things. And I kind of have I've been there and done that, so I kind of have like a window on what that lifestyle's like. And so I feel like I'm a pretty good advocate for writers and understand where they're coming from. And there's also a website called HollywoodScriptwriting.com, which I also do coaching, career coaching for writers as well. And you can always call me at this number, 310-850-4707. And we can talk. as a therapist, I have a free first session. I have that as a rule, so we can get to know each other. That's a big deal in therapies. The fit that you have with your therapist. So I let people get to know me and spend an hour with me and decide if they want to continue.
Well, and I'm sure once they talk to you, they want to continue.
They usually do. Yeah.
Well, David, is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up? Because this has been an hour of power. That's what I'm going to call it, an hour of power. And I don't call myself an hour of power.
Yeah, no, I guess I've pushed this to the limits already. So
no, I mean this is amazing. Oh my God, this is literally.
Who knew you were going to have the same background?
Yeah, this is just phenomenal.
I work with autistic kids in special ed as well, doing as a behavior therapist. So I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, being one of those kids still, the whole developmental delay thing, and, it's just like, I just remember being devastated when I got taken out of second grade and put into first grade. That never, left me, and of course I went to therapy and healed most of it, but, God, you know what I mean? It's like, because I wanted to bring my Barbie dolls to school. I hated that she looked in my bag for my, I think I was, the book, back then you had the book Reading Rainbows or Kaleidoscope or something like that. You remember the books that, whatever book you were in. Instead of bringing my book to school, I brought my Barbie dolls to school, and at the time I was supposed to do a report on something out of Reading Rainbow, and I did a report on Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk fighting the bear in the woods. They were like, she doesn't follow directions. She's reading about Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno.
Right. So even then, you were into the Hollywood scene even then.
And I didn't even realize that I was, and then they looked in my bag, and of course, a lot of people don't remember this, but I loved, Space 1999, and then they looked in my bag, my mother had bought me a little Angie Dickinson doll from Policewoman, so I had Angie Dickinson's doll in the bag. And I didn't bring the school books. It was like, no. And what's crazy is that I remember, Angie Dickinson, her name was Pepper on the Policewoman show.
Right.
And I kid you not, I had a baby years later, and I don't know where I got it from, but I started calling my kid Pepper. And he's still Pepper till this day. So that's his nickname is Pepper. So it's like, wait a minute.
That's cute. That's very cute. That's a very cool story.
Yeah, so I mean, you and I seem like we could just sit down and talk about this for hours, because I'm telling you, I want to come back and interview you again. I normally don't come back and interview people for a second or third time. It's like, okay, I interviewed them, it was great. What's next? I'm impatient. I have ADHD. That's like, oh, you interviewed him last week. Oh, I don't remember. Oh yeah, I remember him now. So no, let's do it again. Yeah, we'd love to have you back, and maybe we can do a second one around case studies, because, we're in the heart of Hollywood. And this is the stuff that people want to know about, David. This is the stuff that no one's talking about. And if they are talking about it, it's fluffed around. It's not coming from a legitimate psychological perspective.
Right, yeah.
And that's what I like about yours.
Yeah, I've actually gone through the entire 3,000 hours of internship and passed all the licensing exams and everything. So it's the real deal.
Yeah, you're not a piece of sweet potato pie. You're not a slut. You're not a piece of slut. You know what I mean? You're the guy. You're that guy. So yeah, and I mean from one, therapist to another, I salute you because, like I said, I remember I wanted more training at one point in 2003, and I was living in Connecticut at the time. And I just remember I was looking at going to St. Joseph's College in Connecticut to check out their licensed marriage and family therapist degree. And I just remember them saying, oh, you have to do all this stuff all over again. I was like, wait a minute, I already have a master's degree. You're not going to take these classes, this class. And it was like, well, what model did you take? I was like, I took the medical model. And they were like, well, this is the systems model. Kimberly, it's the systems. We treat the whole system, the family. So it's just like, trust me, I am so there with you, David. You have no idea. I was talking about a meeting of the mind. I'm here with you today.
Oh, that's so great. I'm glad, we were able to discuss all these topics. So they're really interesting to me, and I can tell that you're interested by them as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, and not knocking Hollywood, a lot of people didn't get their master's in counseling psychology. A lot of people didn't get their master's in MFT. A lot of people, you know, maybe have gotten their, you know, bachelor's in art, in the arts or something, but it's not a requirement. And so when you go forward and you get your master's or your PhD or whatever, and then you incorporate that into your Hollywood lifestyle, that's a whole other ballgame. Now you're an expert. Now you're because you're coming from it from having had major tipping point success all the way to the psychological Einstein aspect of things. So this is a whole other ballgame you're playing here.
I'm able to bring a lot to the table in terms of having been there and gone through, making a career last for 25 years is not easy.
Yeah, your success was colossal. It wasn't a pinch in the sun. It was your success was totally colossal.
Yeah,
colossal. Like I said, you're the guy. You're that guy. I got in trouble in Alf. You're that guy. It's all your fault.
All right. Again, I take the responsibility.
You're so funny. You're so funny. But I'm serious. So yeah, you've had colossal success that spans almost 30 years. That's not a little bit of time. And then you have the psychological aspect of things. So yeah, you're in more than a qualified position, where you've been the creator, the writer, and the producer. Colossal success in those areas, and then you brought the psychological aspect of things from a systems perspective to Hollywood. That's, again, I salute you.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And, I look forward to talking to you again.
I do too. So I'm well, folks, you've heard it right from the horse's mouth, or literally, as we would say, right from David's mouth, the steps that you need to take to understand what your career is doing and how to manage your career as a writer, as a creator. And, David Silverman, you're talking about The Simpsons, the Rugrats, the Thornberrys. We could go on and on here, but yeah, we're talking about David Silverman, guys. We just had an interview with him. He is amazing. He's done some amazing things, and now he's helping you manage your writing career. Guys, if you know like I know, you would hire the Hollywood therapist, Hollywood Therapy with David Silverman, and you can go to his blog. Go ahead and share your blog again, David.
Yeah, the blog is called Hollywood Therapy. It's on a big website called Psych Central. You can Google that. And I've written, I think, over 100 different blogs on different topics, from rejection, motivation, inspiration, procrastination, rejection. You name it. Anything that can come up in a writer's life, I've tried to write something about it to be something that's of practical use to a writer who's, maybe is starting out or maybe in the middle of his career. So that and
Psych Central is no little blog either. That's a huge website filled with resources from legitimate people that work in psychotherapy, from PhDs to you name it. So yeah, that's a huge blog.
Yeah, it reaches hundreds of thousands of people. I'm really excited to be. I take it for granted now. I'm going on my third year there.
Wow. Well, David, you're beyond successful. You are a guru to me, and I thank you so much. And I don't call people gurus. You know what I mean? I mean, Tina Turner's one of my gurus. I love her. And, Oprah's one of my gurus, and there's a couple of them. Tom is a guru. I don't care what people say about Tom Cruise. That guy, you can learn some things from him, man. So it's like, you're a guru. You're in that category. You're one of the good guys. Or to Robert De Niro, that's one of my gurus. He's a good fella. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Al Pacino, another guru. So, yeah, now David Silverman, you've been added to my slate of gurus, my go-to people. So, I love you to pieces, David, and I said it out loud, and I thank you so much for interviewing with us today on the Huffington Post, and I look forward to talking to you again.
All right. Okay, me too. All right, take care.
Thanks, guys, and thank you so much, David, for interviewing with us today. Have a wonderful day and happy holidays, David.
Oh, you made it a pleasure, really. You really made it a pleasure to talking about
Well,
this stuff.
thank
And I could go
you.
on.
It is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. So we will be talking to you again, hopefully maybe before the New Year's is out, guys. We'll bring him back and get some more out of him.
Okay. I'll look forward to it. Okay. Take care.
All right, David. Thank you. Thank you, guys. This is Kimberly Jessica signing off in Hollywood, California. Have a great one, guys, and happy holidays.